We are neither neutral.
Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines this hour. The US Justice Department releases its largest batch yet of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, following several drops over the weekend. Many files remain heavily redacted despite a legal deadline to publish all records by Friday. Swedish activist Greta Thunberg is arrested by London police at a demonstration supporting pro-Palestinian hunger strikers. Palestinian groups say the arrest is made under the Terrorism Act during a protest linked to prisoners accused of supporting a banned group. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says talks with US envoys in Miami produced draft documents on security guarantees and ending the war. He says the papers also cover Ukraine's recovery and a basic framework for a peace settlement. The Ukrainian president also says that Russia launches a massive overnight attack using more than 600 drones and 30 missiles, killing at least 3 people. Ukraine reports emergency power outages as Poland scrambles jets in response to the strikes. Australia's most populous state moves to pass tougher gun laws, ban terrorist symbols and curb protests after the Bondi mass shooting. The emergency legislation is expected to clear the New South Wales Parliament on Tuesday. The United Nations says Myanmar's military junta is using brutal violence and intimidation to force people to take part in upcoming votes. The UN warns the tactics undermine any credibility of the polls and deepen the country's human rights crisis. China urges the United States to fulfill its nuclear disarmament responsibility after a Pentagon report says Beijing is expanding its missile force. Beijing says Washington should create conditions for all nuclear states to disarm and rejects claims it opposes arms control talks. 5 Pakistani police officers are killed after their van is hit by a bomb and gunfire in the country's northwest, police have said. Authorities say the attack involves explosives, followed by shooting with no claim of responsibility so far. We start this hour in Israel, and Defense Minister Israel Katz announced that the military would not fully withdraw from the Gaza Strip. He said a civilian military army unit known as Nahal would be established in the enclave. Speaking at a ceremony marking 1,200 new housing units in Beit El in the West Bank, Katz explained that these units would replace a military base being closed and serve as a model for integrating civilians and soldiers. Nahal units historically combine military service with community building and volunteer programs. Let's take a listen into the statements.
עזה עמוק ולעולם לא נצא מכל עזה, לא יהיה דבר כזה. אנחנו נמצאים שם כדי להגן, כדי למנוע את מה שקרה. סומכים, אמרנו, על צור ישראל ועל צבא הגנה לישראל, וצה"ל חוצץ ויחצוץ בין אויבים ג'יהאדיסטים מהסוג הזה לבין היישובים שלנו והתושבים. בעזרת השם בבוא העת, גם בצפון עזה נקים גרעיני נחל במקום היישובים שנעקרו. נעשה את זה בדרך נכונה, בעיתוי המתאים. יש כאלה שמפגינים, זה בסדר, אבל אנחנו שרים, אנחנו צריכים באופן מעשי.
Israel withdrew settlements from Gaza in 2005, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly ruled out re-establishing settlements there, though some ultra-nationalist coalition members advocate for reoccupation. With Israel entering an election year in 2026, settlements are expected to be a major political issue. Netanyahu's office declined to comment on Katz's announcement. We are now joined by Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, a former diplomat, and he's joining us now from New Delhi. Ambassador Sachdev, thank you very much for joining us. Israel Katz, the defense minister, has said that the military will not fully withdraw from Gaza. Is that contradicting the document they signed of Donald Trump's 20-point peace plan, where a full withdrawal of Israeli troops is expected when the third phase comes into action?
Thank you for having me. I think this statement, though surprising, is not unexpected. It is motivated by two or three things. Few of them you have already mentioned. Elections in Israel are approaching, and there is also a visit to White House by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later this week to discuss the second phase of the 20-point plan to bring peace to Gaza. Thirdly, I think one should also add here that it is to put pressure on Hamas to disarm and create new preconditions for Israel to have its way. It would be recalled that Judea and Samaria, the area of the West Bank that Israel covets, finds rationale historically in the biblical description of that being part of the Jewish homeland 2,000 years ago. But Gaza is not mentioned in the same context because there was no historic claim or presence of Jews in Gaza. So Gaza has been controverted in Israeli domestic politics. There were attempts to set up a number of small kibbutz in Gaza earlier, and these were abandoned in 2005 as Israeli armed forces regarded them to be indefensible, and having them had no domestic sort of consequence, as the Israeli population was not in favor at that time. But subsequently, Hamas took over Gaza, and rest is history. Now, at the moment, Israel Katz represents the right wing of the Likud party of Benjamin Netanyahu, and he would hardly have made this statement without Prime Minister's acquiescence. So one would have to wait and see whether this is kite flying and whether it finds some mention in creating a new paradigm in White House after Trump and Netanyahu summit later this week. Thank you.
No, thank you. Do stay with us as we move over to Africa for our next story. And Sudan's Prime Minister, Kamil Idris, presented a peace plan to the UN Security Council on Monday, aiming to end the country's nearly 3-year war. The proposal calls for a ceasefire monitored by the United Nations, African Union, and the Arab League, and the withdrawal of the rapid support forces from areas under their control. Idris says RSF fighters not implicated in war crimes could be reintegrated into society, while elections would follow a transition period for inter-Sudanese dialogue. Fighting continues in Kordofan and North Kordofan, with civilians fleeing RSF attacks. The US-backed Quad proposed a humanitarian truce focused on aid and civilian protection. Idris emphasised that his plan was homemade, not imposed, but RSF support appears unlikely. The UN estimates over 40,000 deaths and 14 million displaced since the conflict began in 2023, with Kordofan now witnessing the heaviest clashes. Ambassador Sachdev, does the news coming out of the UN Security Council signal hope for an end to this war today, or do you have some doubts?
I think the very fact that Security Council has finally gotten around to have a full discussion on Sudanese crisis is a positive development. But I think so far it remains adrift. And I think the various plans that have been submitted for consideration of Security Council have almost no salience at the moment. To begin with, Sudanese Prime Minister's plan is quite one-sided. It wants RSF to be confined to barracks and withdraw from the area that it has occupied, as Prime Minister of Sudan claimed. But then it papers over the fact that RSF is in possession of nearly half the area of Sudan, which is Africa's third largest country by area, and is unlikely to withdraw from that area and hand it over to SAF, Sudanese Armed Forces. This has been resisted during the war, which would complete its third year on 15th April next year. And what SAF has not been able to win on the ground is unlikely to be won or conceded by RSF in the negotiating table. Secondly, RSF has important backers who has been supporting RSF, mostly clandestinely, but in a significant manner, and they would not like this body, RSF, to be totally obliterated and neutered, handing over the entire country to SAF. Sudan has a deeply fractured tribal society, which has taken sides between RSF and SAF, and those tribal groups are also going to insist on the present juxtaposition on the ground to continue, because it helps them to gain voice in their respective camps. Last but not the least, Sudan is mineral rich and has many takers in the two respective fragments that Sudan has got divided into. Gold, cotton, oil, and other minerals are available, and these the foreign backers often have the sites on the Red Sea coast, which is quite strategic. The neighboring countries also have their own stakes in this war, and they would not like to create a situation where winner takes it all. The United States has offered a humanitarian pause, and as RSF itself has declared a 3-month ceasefire unilaterally, but it has not observed that ceasefire, and the fighting is continuing. So it makes me a bit pessimistic about anything that would lead to a peace being established in the near future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ambassador Sachdev. It's always a pleasure to get your insight on these matters. We now move on and over to Europe, and Britain has said that it would scale back its plan to raise more tax from farmers and agricultural businesses, which have led to protests since it was announced by the Labour Party government in 2024. The government has said that a threshold for individual inheritance tax relief will rise to $3.4 million to £1 million from April, significantly reducing the number of farms and business owners facing higher inheritance tax bills. The higher threshold for 100% relief, with 50% relief applying to assets above the new level, As per reports, spouses or civil partners will be able to pass on up to £5.7 million worth of farm assets between them. Around 85% of estates claiming agricultural property relief in the 2026 to 27 year, including those that also claim for business property relief, are forecast to pay no more inheritance tax as a result of the changes. The announcement in 2024 by the government of Prime Minister Keir Starmer that it would end an exemption from inheritance tax for agricultural families triggered protests in London by tractor-driving farmers that have continued on a regular basis. The announcement in 2024 by the government of Prime Minister Keir Starmer that it would end an exemption from inheritance tax for these have continued. Apologies for that. We're now joined by Sharad Kohli, a senior economist. He joins us live from New Delhi. Of course, agriculture, farmers, some would say the backbone of Britain, of course, and it's been widely protested across London ever since this very unpopular policy by the Labour government was announced. Do you think this is a genuine policy rethink or a tactical retreat under protest pressure?
Well, greetings, Thomas. Greetings to NewsX World viewers. I think it's clearly under pressure from the protests. If you have tractors moving around on the Oxford Street and Regent Street, obviously you don't have much choice. Some of the most fanciest places in London. And the protest of farmers, farming community is not a very, very large community. But then to be levying succession tax, inheritance tax on them was I think it was a ridiculous idea. It should never have happened in the first place. Well, I think it is all due to the pathetic condition that the United Kingdom is into right now vis-a-vis its own economy. You know, you have the economy is barely growing. It's in decimals, although the real GDP is not even there. The economy is technically into recession, if you ask me as an economist, because we do analyze global economies. And as per my analysis, the economy is in recession. The taxes are not happening. The government is short on revenue. There is rampant unemployment. There is no new business investment coming in. Inflation has been the trouble. The cost of living across the UK, if you ask anybody over there, they would say that the cost of living is very, very bothersome right now. So I think all the economic parameters of UK, ever since India left it behind, a few years ago now, they are below $4 trillion. And look at the debt. UK has 100% debt to GDP ratio at this time, which means your debt is equivalent to the GDP. So not a very healthy position. And to add salt to the wound, political instability. We've literally had a prime minister every other year. So if there is no political stability in a country like the UK, I think there is very little room for progress and for things to be getting better. So I think inheritance tax was suicidal in my view. It should not have been levied, especially on the farmers. Well, a lot of people who were hassled with tax, Thomas, in UK, and those people who were really paying a lot of taxes in the UK, they moved out of UK. Now the best place they found is Dubai. They have gone and resettled in Dubai, and these were the people, Thomas, who were paying millions and millions of pounds of taxes. But if you keep increasing the taxes, progressive taxation is good. But beyond a certain level, if you go on implementing, then I think it will lead to exodus of the people from UK. That's what is happening. So UK is tremendously short of revenue. Economically, it is in a terrible shape right now. I would personally not want to be in the shoes of the Prime Minister, Thomas, at this point of time.
No. Sharad, the government says 85% of these estates will pay no extra tax. Was the original policy ever going to raise meaningful revenue? Was it flawed from the start?
Oh yes, it was absolutely, because farming sector in any country for that matter is a very sensitive sector. We've seen that happening in the US. When we saw the US farmers protesting against rice imports from India and so and so, you see these farmers protests happening because farming is a very, very sensitive occupation. And I think any government policy which targets farmers has almost met with the protest 100%. So I think it was a flawed policy. I'm not sure how this Labour government decided to go after the farmers, and that too, when you're trying to levy inheritance tax, for farming community, you do pass on your assets to your successors. And anyway, number of families in the UK are getting lesser and lesser. So out of that, if those people who are living as a family unit, passing on to their sons and daughters or whatever, and if you levy inheritance tax, it's going to spell, disaster for the farmers. So it was a bad idea anyway. A lot of farming community in the UK runs on subsidies as well, Thomas. We must know that. And if you ask them to pay taxes, well, they'll have to pay through their nose, and they were not prepared to do. So we saw that protest, and we saw the turnaround. I hope some sense prevails for UK to try and generate more revenue from other sources rather than targeting farmers and businesses, Thomas.
Yes, Shahid Kohli, thank you very much for speaking to us. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for joining us. We now move on and over to South Asia, and Bangladesh Foreign Ministry has summoned Indian envoy over security of Bangladeshi missions. The move comes after groups of protesters held demonstrations outside the two Bangladeshi missions in New Delhi and West Bengal's Siliguri. A massive protest was also underway by members of Vishva Hindu Parishad and other Hindu organisations near the Bangladesh High Commission in Delhi over the alleged atrocities against Hindus and the mob lynching of Dipu Chandra Das in Bangladesh. Visuals from the agitation showed protesters breaching barricades, prompting police to resort to lathi charge to bring the situation under control. The incidents Bangladesh cited while summoning the Indian envoy include what the country claimed was vandalism at the Bangladesh Visa Centre in Siliguri on the 22nd of December, and a protest outside the Bangladesh High Commission in New Delhi on the 20th of December. Bangladesh has also reportedly suspended visa operations in Delhi and Siliguri, citing security concerns. Joining us now is Major General Dr. Rajan Kochar. He's an international relations and defence expert. He joins us live from the Indian capital. Thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Can I get your 2 cents on these developments, Dr. Kochar? Of course, anger continues to spill in both countries, India and Bangladesh. Of course, these upcoming elections, we don't expect to see much to calm down in Dhaka until then. However, what is your analysis on these latest updates that we've just had today?
Thank you, Thomas. I think it's an area of concern for India because Bangladesh has been a very friendly neighbor all over these years. If you look at the history of Indo-Bangla relations, they've been very good. And as a matter of fact, there's a large-scale trade also which happens between India and Bangladesh. And number of projects India has initiated in Bangladesh, which are related to water supply and power generation. And the boundary is quite porous. So I think the first concern is that in case there is instability in Bangladesh, it is a cause for concern with our borders because 4,096 kilometers, 5 northeastern states, and there will be security concerns, and that's why the Indian Army has redeployed itself on the Bangladesh border. 3 new military garrisons have come up. The 4th one has come up in Mizoram a couple of days back. So we are seeing a large number of changes in the relationship in the last 18 months. And what we are seeing in Bangladesh is that there is a visible anti-India sentiment amongst the people there. Normally it was not so, but I think one of the reasons has been that Sheikh Hasina has been sheltered here in India. And what happened 18 months back in August or in July, when these a number of people were killed on the streets, around 1,400 of them, and it generated a lot of anger against Sheikh Hasina, and she had to leave the country. So that has been one strong sentiment which I think India needs to reverse, because India needs to tell the people of Bangladesh, that they love the people of Bangladesh. It is the Bangladesh administration which is behaving in a contrarian manner, and the way statements are emanating from Mohammed Yunus, it is apparent that there cannot be any communication as of now
Yes.
with the Indian leadership. But possibly, I think India is waiting right now for a free and a fair election, and I want to highlight this word, free and fair, because under the circumstances, I think it's a tall task or a tall ask to ask for a free and fair elections, because on one side you have banned the Awami League from participating in the election. It is not done in a democratic a country like this. Pakistan also did the same thing. So I am seeing a kind of a mirror image of Pakistan in Bangladesh today, and with the involvement of the ISI and the return of the terrorist camps and all these things, I think it'll be an area of concern for India in the coming months, and we would need to keep a close watch on our borders.
Yes, Dr. Kochar, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on the programme. We now move on over to Europe, and residents of Ukraine's Odessa region are facing darkness and freezing conditions just days before Christmas after intensified Russian strikes on energy infrastructure. Attacks on the 22nd of December damaged 3 energy facilities, cutting electricity to more than 120,000 people. Russian forces have stepped up strikes this month, targeting ports, roads, bridges and homes, worsening power outages and delaying repairs. Locals say daily life has become extremely difficult, with limiting heating, water and transport. Authorities report damage to ports vital for trade and to bridges linking Odessa with surrounding areas, disrupting logistics and travel. Despite repeated attacks and prolonged blackouts, residents say they remain determined to endure and rebuild as winter deepens. Let's listen in.
Я ще вчитель математики. Знаєте, дуже важко, багато учнів в мене онлайн, дуже важко з ними працювати, бо немає то світла, то інтернету немає. От буквально сьогодні зранку в мене було заняття. Знаєте, це просто було неможливо провести урок. Кожної 5-10 хвилин вимикався зв'язок, учень відключався від Zoom, і це було дуже важко провести цей урок. Але знаєте, не дивлячись на все, ми працюємо, ми навчаємо, ми тримаємо освітній фронт, волонтерський фронт і робимо усе можливе, не опускаємо руки.
Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international updates.